Good morning and happy Friday. We have more news than we know what to do with today, so let's get right into it. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich was sentenced to 16 years in prison by a Russian court. He was convicted of espionage charges that the US government says are wholly fabricated. Reports say that the trial moved unusually fast, which could mean developments are underway for a prisoner swap. There's also a worldwide tech outage, so hopefully you can see us. We will also get to that. And of course, President Biden, former President Trump, so much more, the RNC, blah, 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 all that and more to get to.
It's good to be back with you, Niall.
It's good to be back with you too, Nayyera.
Donald Trump, of course, delivered his long-awaited speech last night, and many eyes were on the former president. Others couldn't help but direct their focus to the current president, Joe Biden. Ahead of Trump's speech, journalists, news outlets, and pretty much everyone on social media seemed to be covering totally different worlds. There was the Trump and what he was saying and what's going to happen, and then there was the Biden Democratic presidential ticket challenges. Here is what CBS News was saying as Donald Trump entered the venue last night, his big moment.
Some more breaking news.
All right, Robert.
One of President Biden's confidants, historian John Meacham, who has written many speeches for President Biden, just said on the record to CBS News, any report about my doing anything with the speech is totally false. There had been reports out that John Meacham, so close to President Biden, was working up potentially on an exit the race speech. John Meacham just went on the record with CBS News, said the report about my doing anything with the speech is totally false.
And the White House also coming out with a statement saying it's completely false that the president would make a major announcement in the coming days. They're coming out and pushing back pretty hard.
Democratic Congressman Jim Costa then phoned into CBS News last night during live RNC coverage. This is Trump's moment. And he said Biden can no longer be president.
There's a congressman from California, Democrat, named Jim Costa, no relation. He just called CBS News watching our coverage and said he has decided just now to announce that he can no longer support President Biden remaining in the race. He said it's time for President Biden, his friend. He's a moderate Democrat, one of those blue dogs in the House. He said it's time for President Biden to leave the race. He made the decision in the last hour, and he said other Democrats are moving in that direction. So this is such a fluid moment. Yep. You have the Republican National Convention unfolding, and Democratic House members are watching CBS and saying, enough's enough.
And doing this on the night that Donald Trump accepts his party's nomination for the third time.
Now, if you tuned into MSNBC last night, you might have thought Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid and Jen Psaki were in Milwaukee. But it turns out that actually they were in front of a green screen. That's a move some news outlets, like the New York Post, are claiming was MSNBC's attempt to pull the wool over America's eyes, and others would think it's the New York Post finding something to be outraged about every day, as they tend to do. So anyway, disgraced political journalist Mark Halperin was also reporting on the two worlds.
I'm here in Milwaukee, but our main topic will be Joe Biden. I've talked to multiple Democratic sources familiar with his thinking on what is going on. Everyone told me in Biden world that this would happen gradually and then all of a sudden, and it has happened all of a sudden. The expectation, Joe Biden now has agreed to withdraw from the presidential race this weekend, as early as Saturday. Most of my sources believe Sunday's more likely.
That is the whole media coverage vibe of the RNC. What do you think, Nayyera?
It's so much about vibes, right? There was a moment where Trump came out actually onto the stage and big flashing lights saying the word Trump. And it reminded me of kind of actually like what a drag show looks like. And it's like I sense this very weird vibe of the showmanship versus wanting to have the conservatism and bring some of that in. So this idea of RNC unity, I thought was fascinating, but people just can't seem to focus on Trump, even in Trump's biggest moment of coming in front of this crowd and his acolytes cheering him on. It's still about and I guess that's how it should be, is the guy in the White House.
Right.
And what he's going to do.
Well, it is. I mean, it's yet again one of the. I mean, we seem to be in unprecedented scenarios every week or every day these days, right? But
it's like the gods said that this election is too boring, way too predictable, and we just need to throw a wrench in it.
Well, I mean, we were all thinking about a month or so ago. It's like, oh, this is going to be a kind of dreary campaign, and then the world exploded. But I mean, it was, I suppose, a challenge for everybody in the media to have that split screen, have the two things going on in unison. The thing about it from a Trumpian or Republican perspective is I think they're probably fine with that, right? I mean, it's not a downside for them to watch Democrats fighting with each other or to suggest that the president has a fragile grasp on the Democratic nomination. It's all quite beneficial to Republicans, I thought.
And this is part of I think the Trump calculus, is they have said behind closed doors and even in the background whispers that appear in newspaper articles that they want Biden on the ticket because that idea of the implosion of Biden, the implosion of the Democratic Party that comes through that way is much easier. And plus, they've been planning for that for quite some time. The Sleepy Joe Biden was a message that they hammered over and over again until, like, my mom can recite that. And that's her perspective now. So they were very, very effective, and they want to reap the benefits of that. I also can't imagine, though, that someone like Trump, we know the ego, we know the showmanship, if they had cut in with saying, oh, Kamala Harris did this, or some other Republican did this, like that would have absolutely driven him nuts. And he did try to, I guess, have some kind of unity message, but that the unity that we're seeing still seems to be about anti-Biden and not everybody in the Republican Party on the same page. Were you getting that sense from watching it?
I mean, I'm just very skeptical of the Trump unity thing or the new Trump thing. Seems to me that for the best part of a decade, various reporters have honestly made fools of themselves by suggesting that there's a new Trump at hand.
This is the moment Trump became president.
He's going to be a pivot now. He's going to pivot to the center. Like, he's not. I mean, that's not who he is. I don't even mean that in any particularly denigratory way about him. It's just like Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He's whatever, 78 he just turned. He's not going to change now, even in light of the dramatic events of Saturday. So there was this sort of attempt at the start of the speech to be to adopt a less belligerent tone than usual. And then it was like at a certain point, the edit dropped in, and then it was just like back to the normal stuff of crazy Nancy Pelosi and Democrats are all trying to penalise me by mounting these criminal cases against me, and just typical standard Trump fare.
Yeah, and that's part of the appeal. Like that's what he has played on, and that's the authenticity there. And that's, I think, the challenge that people feel lied to about Biden, right? That there was an authenticity that we were being told and given that is not. It's genuinely not the case anymore. He was, Biden was supposed to be a transitional president.
Sure.
And that's not part of something that he campaigned on. I think many people voted for him for that idea of post-COVID stability, post-economic collapse stability, with that hope that there would be a transition, and the DNC just didn't start that transition, and Biden didn't start that transition early enough. So now we have folks just watching the RNC and talking about what's going on with the Democratic Party.
I'm not feeling either of us in a sense of hyper outrage with this dumbass New York Post story about whether MSNBC hosts were in front of a green screen or not.
I mean, half of the movies that we go to watch right now are green screen. I mean, it's just the reality of television and movie making and technology. So I don't get that. And I think it's another effort to paint this idea of the media against Trump. And I'm like, guys, also it's MSNBC. Do you think that RNC actually wants MSNBC set up there?
Well,
what?
There's also just the media tendency, I think, that there are various people who you can name, whatever side you're on, you can throw out these names. So if you're on MSNBC, you go Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, Project 2025, Laura Ingraham. And if you're on the other side, you go Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow. And it's just, it's such a game. And I think people are being taken as marks on it, honestly.
Well, and I think those, that might be immediate clickbait, but that's clearly not the tone of the country right now, where that's part of that polarization and why 60%, if not more, of Americans at this moment just a couple of weeks before the election, are still unaffiliated with a political party. The party politics and that partisanship, it just isn't working for people.
Sure, absolutely. Well, plenty more to discuss, as I mentioned in the introduction. Please join us. We're coming right back.